Hello, everybody. It is 4:04 p.m. Central Time on the 19th of October, 2020. It's Monday here in the United States. Got some breaking news for everybody. A very large earthquake has just struck here along the coasts of Alaska, right here at the tip of the peninsula, going out into the Aleutian Island chain. Take a look at it. 7.4 preliminary. Actually, I think at first it came in at 6.9. They brought it up to 7.4. We'll see where the ultimate magnitude comes out on this. But again, this is a huge earthquake, and this is directly on the plate boundary. We're looking at the buoy map right now. Let me hit refresh just to see if we have any buoys in motion. We don't have any buoys currently in motion. They'll start to flash if there's anything detected. Let's go over to the tsunami. Hold on. Waiting for the siren to sound. Okay, hold on.
7.0.
All right. There we go. Okay, that's just the earthquake 3D siren we have set up for anything 7.0 and greater. That way, if we're out of the room and we hear a ding of a bell and we hear the siren go off, we can immediately get online and do what we've got to do. So just looking at the area here, this is right on the peninsula, and I'm not seeing any actual major warnings, but they do have a warning going, quote unquote. Let's just go see what it says. So tsunami warnings are in effect for South Alaska and the Alaska Peninsula, Pacific coasts from Kennedy Entrance, Alaska, 40 miles southwest of Homer, to Unimak Pass, Alaska, 80 miles northeast of Unalaska. Okay, this is the preliminary on this. We don't, like I said, we don't have any data buoys going yet, or buoys with data, nothing like that flashing yet. I'll hit refresh on it again, but they have issued a tsunami warning. We don't know the size of the tsunami yet, but they're saying it's potential. There is the potential, and you guys know if you're in the area, when you get a tsunami warning, if you're in the coastal flood areas, you need to get out of there immediately and start heading inland away from the ocean. This is no joke. They've already issued a warning on this. We'll see if it goes up or down, if they remove the warning or if it stays in place. But right now they do have it. It's going to be along the Aleutian Island chain. Let's go up here and show you where the center of this is. So the big earthquake coming in up here right at the peninsula going out into the Aleutian Island chain. I'm going to pull the coordinates from the USGS, and they actually now, here, hold on, Europeans have weighed in at 7.5. They actually have it a point higher. USGS has it at 7.4. Europeans have it at 7.5. So whether we go with USGS or Europeans, we are just within a hair of a point of one another. The location the USGS is triangulating from is called Sand Point, Alaska. Let's put the coordinates in and go see what's there. And again, it's going to be right in here. So there we go. Here's the earthquake epicenter. And you know what? I might as well put a place mark on this since this is an extremely large earthquake. We'll want to remember where this was in the future. And today's date, of course, is October 19th. So October 19th, 2020. 2020 strikes again, guys. 7.4. Or 7.5, whichever. We'll put 7.4 since that's the USGS on that. So what I want to pay attention to here, though, is the plate boundary, which you can see here. It's making a curved shape. This is actually a drop-off. Goes down 17, 18, 19,000 feet. So think of this like a giant ridge, and we're actually looking up it with Alaska up on the top of the ridge. There we are. So now you can understand. Now, the earthquake is happening down inside of here, down below. The depth located at 41 kilometers deep. So 41 km down inside of here is where the earthquake has taken place. Now, the plate boundary is something I talk about a lot. We have a red line up here that signifies where the plate boundary is, and the big earthquake is marked here with this red dot from the USGS. But the red line goes up into the United States. Now, we had a warning going for the United States, and we were talking about 7.7 right in here on the north side of this, the last time the plate started to slip. Big time. Now, we've had other slow slips since then, since 2012. But in 2012, this all slipped, and we saw a 7.7 earthquake take place on the north side of there right after the slip stopped. Now, this is far enough away, I'd say, well, look, I mean, we're about another 1,000 miles away. But it's still big enough that we certainly have to associate it with the plate shifting. Now, we go back over to the west, and we had new blasts over at Kamchatka over the past several days, at Mount Ebuko, Mount Kluchevskoy, Mount Karinsky. 3 volcanoes erupting up here right at the pinnacle tip of the plate boundary to the west, which we can even see that on Google Earth when we look at the topography here going over to Kamchatka where all the volcanoes were erupting here. Okay, this is going to happen. Hold on. I apologize, but can't do anything about it. That'll happen a few more times as they revise the magnitudes up and down. It'll sense a new or different 7 and ding the bell, and that's what we have on here for, so everybody who's watching knows an extremely large earthquake has struck. And sometimes you just don't hear it. So let's go over to the Tsunami Warning Center again and hit refresh and see what our latest warnings are. We have a warning, an informational statement for Guam and an informational statement for American Samoa. That's good. Okay, that's good. The informational statements usually mean that there's not a warning for the area across the Pacific. Yeah, there is no tsunami warning down at American Samoa. Do you guys even know where American Samoa is? It's down here. So, in other words, across the Pacific, we don't have a warning. And going to Hawaii, we do not have a warning. That means localized wave warnings here along the coast of Alaska is where we would start to look for any potential wave activity. Again, if they're issuing the informational statements, that kind of lets us know that it's not a warning statement. The difference is huge. Let's hit refresh on the buoys. So we don't have any buoys in event mode yet. And the earthquake happening right next to where we do have buoys. I guess that's good news, that if we don't have buoys in event mode around the area, the likelihood of major shifting taking place is less, which then means the likelihood of an actual tsunami would be lessened. Not completely, but here's the threat statement. So let's just hit refresh on their threat warning. Hazardous tsunami waves are possible for coasts located within 300 kilometers of the earthquake epicenter. That's in part of the statement here. So let's just measure so we can get that in 300 kilometer range, and we'll see how far out that is. So here's kilometers, kilometers, and we'll spread that out 300. So 300 goes roughly over here to the edge of Kodiak. Let's just say to the edge of Kodiak. I mean, that's 400, but you see where it goes. Okay, out to 300 here, and we go 300 over here to the west. And that takes us out roughly all the way to Shishalden, out here at the pinnacle tip of the Aleutian Island Chain. So 300 is a pretty big area to watch, but it's not a Pacific-wide tsunami warning, which is good. It's not like the Japan megaquake in 2011, where a tsunami went all the way across the Pacific and hit the west coast of the United States and caused fatalities back in 2011. It's not like that. That's good. The plate boundary is shifting. There is no doubt about it. This comes right on the day after our 10-day warning expired. Day 11 of the 10-day warning. After our big deep 6 all the way down here, and a spread of earthquakes that did go all the way across, going back up to Kamchatka, which these earthquakes that spread were all in the 4 and 5.0 range. Let me just show it to you. So all in the 4 and 5 range. But then connected between them, volcanoes erupting. I just have to point that out for any of my longtime viewers who've been watching. In between these points where the rings overlap, volcanoes erupted in Kamchatka, and right here, down in South Japan, where we don't have any seismic, we have a bunch of volcanic activity that took place there, and then going back down and around over to here, right in the middle of here, or right next to it, we have Katovar volcano that's been going nonstop, and then we get back over to where the big push happened, back at Fiji. It's a big earthquake, guys. There's nothing small about this event. It's huge, and this means, looking into the United States, we have to now watch in the Pacific Northwest for the potential of release, because the slow slip is still taking place in the states of Washington, Oregon, and even going up into Vancouver Island, up in the far Pacific Northwest. I wouldn't even call that the United States, but Northwest in general. And let's go check the tremors. Go see what's going on with the shaking and vibrating of the plate. Make note of where it is basically now and compare over the next day or two as this shift comes in. So we have 379 as of yesterday. Today's the 19th. So 379 as of yesterday. and they're centered in Washington going up into Vancouver Island. The plate shifting here. But now that a huge, huge push has occurred up in the northwest, that means that this is all going to flare up down to the east by southeast on the edge of the North American craton. So that is just extremely interesting to watch. And if you live out there, of course, it's more than interesting. It's something that is going to affect your life. Also, along the rest of the plate, I mean, over on the New Madrid seismic zone, we're watching because of the hotspot releases. Well, I don't think this is going to help anything. I think this is going to increase things. And also, this is a sign that the plate's already in big-time motion with a mid-range 7 and a tsunami warning going out around the area, which I would think that tsunami warning over the next, well, let's see, we're back at 7.3 and 7.5 for the earthquakes, but I would think that tsunami warning eventually here will fizzle out as we figure out whether or not waves are actually generated on that. It'll take like an hour or so. It takes about the speed of a jetliner, the waves spread out in all directions. Then as they get into close to shore, of course, they slow down and pile up, and that's what causes the tsunami. But in this case, let's go back over and check one more time. Let's go to the National Data Buoy Center, hit refresh. No buoys in event mode. Okay, all right. That is, again, very good news to see that. Let's hit refresh on the tsunami warnings. They don't have any updated... Oh, wait, we do. Hold on. What did they update? Hazardous tsunami waves from this earthquake are possible within 300 kilometers of the epicenter along the coast of... okay. No areas covered by this message appear to be immediately threatened. However, the situation is still under investigation. They're doing pretty much probably the same thing I'm doing, only a more high-tech version of it. They're watching all the buoys probably on some big screen, and they're looking to see if is there even like 1 inch of wave height change in anything. And if it doesn't, then that means there's no tsunami. Okay, so they're just, again, doing the same thing that we're doing here, only with, again, more gear and more access. We'll have to see what happens with the tremors and the shifting of the plate in the United States on the edge of the craton. It goes down into California. This is on the last day of our warning. I told everybody, look, today it expires. People even asked me today on social media, which you can go over and check, I guess, if my posts are even still there. They keep get flagged and taken down. But you guys go over and check, and somebody asked me, I think it was last night. They're like, what's going on? I'm like, well, today's the last day. We'll see what happens. And now, boom, huge earthquake up in Alaska, of all places, which is kind of right in between both of the areas that are shifting. If you think about the United States shifting with a slow slip, right? The Juan de Fuca fracture zone, all shifting. We got a 4.0 earthquake that struck here. Hotspots that went up to the volcanoes up here in Canada. We looked at that 2 days ago. And then over here, we have eruptions and a path of earthquakes going right down to the coast of Japan, with a bunch of deep activity raised high off the globe. So it's kind of the halfway point between where the United States is shifting and where all the volcanoes and the deep activity is coming up to Japan. And then boom, in between there is where our large earthquake just struck. Now there's potential for more with the plate shifting down here in the United States. That with the plate shifting, all those little red dots that I just showed you on the tremor map here, with all this shifting, we have to watch on the north side and south side of the Juan de Fuca. And I look on the south side for a shift to go down across California, hence the warning I have going for 4 different earthquakes in California. And that warning expires basically tonight. So do I extend the warning? I think I should, at least for another day. So, adding 24 hours onto it doesn't make that big of a difference to me. But I'm not going to add much more onto that. If we get beyond a day from now and we don't see any shifting going on, we'll reassess the whole position on the West Coast in light of the new release that just happened up here in the far, far Pacific Northwest up into Alaska. Now, the USGS and the Europeans both have it at 7.5. Let's get the info from the USGS. 7.5 at 40.1 kilometers deep. 43 people felt the earthquake out in the ocean. That means it was huge because up here is not populated. As you can imagine, we get out here into the extended perimeters of the Alaskan Peninsula before the Aleutians. Again, this is the Arctic Circle. So people who are going to live up here are going to either have their own ham radios or some other form of communication. They don't have phones that run there, for instance. No phone lines running out over the ocean. It's amazing, guys. Huge earthquake. It's the first one in several weeks. And it's right in the middle between our previous sets of earthquakes, which I could get into on some other day. How this earthquake here, this 7.5, is sandwiched between our previous sets of earthquakes over the last couple days. That we have a 4.3 over to the east in Canada, and we have that 4. Here, let's get that on there. Where is it? Man. There we go. Okay, I had to bring the full week in here. So notice where the 7 is. You see how the 7 is right in the middle where the sets of rings of the red earthquakes overlap? They're 4s, but it's nonetheless the middle point between the other previous sets of earthquakes on both sides of it. We call that middle point, even if it gets down to a fine point like this, like 300 to 500 miles across. That middle point where the 7.5 is the fulcrum point, like a 2-arm scale where we're balancing or teetering on that very center point. And in this case, it was the whole combined power of what's on the east and on the west. And we get the tally in the middle. I think it's a standing wave. Long story on that. Whole different update to even tell you about the standing waves and what I think they mean. I will take you back to where we started the broadcast, which is there was a tsunami warning issued for this, and that's within 300 kilometers, and the good news is it's very sparsely populated up here. That's the good news. The bad news is, because it's so sparsely populated, somebody could be out there along the shores of the ocean out here doing whatever they normally do in Alaska. And hopefully they'd be smart enough to understand that if the waves recede out into the ocean and the water drains out into the ocean, that they would be looking at a tsunami coming in and take to higher ground. 300 kilometers, again, that's the Alaska and Aleutian Peninsula. That is sparsely populated, and that's the only good news on it. We have to watch for other earthquake activity to spread out and away from this. And let's look at the arrow map really quick. There's our 7.5. Look which way the arrows point. Points here into Yukon and the Northern Territories of Canada. And there's a 3-way split along the edge of the Craton. When a big push comes in, it's enough to go all the way over across Nunavut, back out to Greenland and our letter X's over to the east. It's a big enough push to come down interior on the plate, on the Craton edge, excite things back at Yellowstone and Idaho and Colorado and West Texas and all the way across the Craton to the East Coast. It's also enough energy to go down the 3rd way, which is down into California, which then makes a beeline over to the east as well, ultimately, but that pushes all of California. So the Juan de Fuca is already moving, and there's a new huge release up here on the north side, which puts more energy into it. And with more energy into it, I would think it would start to move more, unless it gets blocked. If it gets blocked and it totally stops, then we're looking at a big earthquake building right on the west coast of the United States. If the plate starts to shift, then we're looking at the plate shifting, dropping off noteworthy sized earthquakes. Not exactly huge, but still big, so to speak. 5s and greater, 5s to 6s, can happen when the plate starts shifting normally, but you put more energy into it. If it stops, let's say it just goes hush-hush and goes quiet, that's like locked and loaded, building like a spring being twisted up and tightened up to a point where you're going to let it go and it's going to spring out in a way. And that goes across the plate. So this is what we would call go time. We're dealing with a mid-range 7, the first in God knows how long, and we're within the vicinity of the continental United States, and we're on the edge of the North American plate, and the plate is slipping here across northwest United States, Washington, Oregon, Vancouver Island, with the Juan de Fuca. With all that going on, it's a good time for you to pay attention to it. Watch it over the next few days. Pay attention to where the arrows point. That's where this is going to go overall. And I'll be back on if anything of any significance takes place over the next several days. I'd like to urge everybody to remember, don't be scared. You need to be prepared. And being prepared means basically you're just going to have an emergency kit. Of course, you're going to take shelter if an earthquake strikes, so that means underneath a table or a desk. Then you also need the appropriate supplies to get you through a few days, in case you're cut off without power, food, or water. I would say anything beyond a few days is the long-term supply stuff. I'm talking about the kit that you could grab and take outside with you if you need to go outside. If you're going outside, you might not be coming back in for a while. Could be hours or days. And if it's anything more than hours, like right now here in Missouri, it's cold and rainy. It's like 40 degrees Fahrenheit and rain. So if you're stuck outside for more than a few hours in the cold rain, you're done. You're done. If you're going to be out there for more than a day in the cold rain, I would say chalk it up even to a very strong person that you're probably going to be getting hypothermia and be in bad shape. So if you're going to be outside in the cold, or if you're going to be outside in the hot, you need to have an appropriate kit that reflects where you live and the time of year it is. Basic stuff. Change of clothes, set of shoes, first aid, sanitation, a form of communication, batteries, flashlight, so you don't have to just use your phone. Flashlight. You'll come up with better ideas than that. Medicine if you require it. Think of disabled, think of the elderly that might be with you or children, and have it into a bag that you can carry. Put that bag somewhere easily accessible by the door that you're going to go out, which kind of means you need to know which door to go out beforehand, like a fire drill. So just think about it. Which door are you going to go out? Put the emergency kit by the emergency kit or bag by the door, and then you grab it when you're on your way out. Or after the earthquake takes place, you can grab it. Oh, other things that you should put in there. ID, insurance information if you have it, right? The important documents that you would need, maybe an extra debit card or cash if you have extra cash. Now, I'd also like to point out really quick, sorry guys, this is going to drag on into a very long update here, but we have a 3.2 that struck just right after this earthquake up in Alaska. Very rare out over here at the California border with Nevada. Also a 2.9 striking right up inside of the park. Let's just call it a 3. Inside of Yellowstone National Park. So a 3 in the park and a 3 down in California. I'm more interested in the 3 in California just because it's at a rare location. See how it says Sandy Valley, Nevada? Hold on. What was the location up in Alaska? Wasn't that Sandy something? Hold on. Sand Point. Wow, that's weird. Okay, Sand Point up in Alaska and Sandy Valley down here in California. Both hit within just a little bit of each other, and I would just like to go look it up and see what's out at Sandy Valley at a 12-kilometer depth. All right, well, I got a lot of sand going on all of a sudden. That's weird. Oh, is there anything of any noteworthiness out here next to where the earthquake is? Ah, okay, well, hold on. We've got a volcanic field here called the Sima or Sima Lava Field from the Smithsonian. It also looks like we have a solar farm right here on this side. Yeah, we do. We have a giant mirrored solar farm. Look at that. Amazing. But the earthquake's not related to the solar farm. It's 12 kilometers down in the crust. It's going to be related to the volcanic field right next to it. So that's just something of interest. And then, of course, we all know about Yellowstone, so I don't need to tell you about that. Northern California also has some activity going too, and this is a volcano in Northern California. A place called the Geysers. The Geysers, or Geyserville, depending on which earthquake you click on. Here's the USGS coordinates for it. I shouldn't even need to show it to you. The name is the Geysers, if you're new here. Recapping one more time. Now we've got a good magnitude associated with this, 7.5, which is a very large earthquake. There's a 300-kilometer tsunami warning issued, which takes us just around the Aleutian Island chain up in Alaska. That's the good news. Let's go to the buoy center and hit refresh and see if the buoys are in event mode. No buoys in event mode. The professionals are watching pretty much the same thing like I'm looking at here. So I would think that they would come over and probably issue another informational statement at some point saying the chances of a tsunami are probably nil or none. But as it goes right now, they still got it bright red up here on the top of their page at tsunami.gov. We do have a tsunami warning still going. I'm still seeing informational statements being issued. But let's just go over here and see if there's anything else. Okay, Sand Point, Cold Bay, and Kodiak. They've got the arrival times for any kind of wave activity they'd expect, but I don't see any wave height information. So I would think they're still reassessing or assessing, not reassessing. Still assessing whether or not there's any wave activity. I would wait at least an hour or two before definitively saying whether or not there is a wave. An hour, not 2 hours. 2 hours is overkill. 1 hour from the point of the earthquake, you could pretty much say whether or not there's going to be a wave or not. If there's no wave by that point detected, there is no tsunami. Now, we do have aftershock activity taking place. For instance, a 5.2 just struck as an aftershock. I think that's the first noteworthy aftershock. We have everything 0.0 and greater turned on. So it is the first. How could there only be one aftershock on this? I've got the USGS 0.0 and greater feed turned on. So why wouldn't they show us anything smaller? This is Alaska, and they are normally showing us all the small earthquakes up in Alaska. So either they're omitting thousands of small earthquakes that are striking right now, or we've got a technical outage of some kind. Let me go turn on our USGS 0.01 day feed. See if that's going to make any difference. We should have a whole bunch of other aftershocks going on along with this quake. Not even one. We've got one 5.2 aftershock. Something's funny about that, guys. And funny, I don't mean like humorous. I mean there's something wrong with that. Because again, you can't get a 7.5 with tsunami and just one little aftershock of a 5. There should just be a whole bunch hitting right now, filling up the whole feed. And the fact that there's not means something's wrong with the reporting of the earthquakes. That's the only explanation. Occam's razor. Since when don't 7.5 and tsunamis have aftershocks of hundreds of smaller earthquakes in the 4 and 5 range afterwards? Okay, I'm not going to complain about it. I just want to point that out. Now, you guys will be back if anything else goes down. This is go time, like I said, so you can probably expect a few more updates from me. I would like to point out over on my YouTube channel, I've been talking about this coming for the last week when the deep earthquake struck. So the deep earthquake started to hammer off. That's when I issued the warnings for increased activity. Now here we are, and we're back to major large activity. Nothing to scoff at when we get a tsunami warning. And the tsunami warning is still technically going, and it will go probably for the next hour until they ultimately figure out there's no wave. Don't want to say there's no wave for certain. Don't quote me on that. But it just, again, the buoys aren't going, so I would think there's probably no wave. 4:32 p.m. Central Time. I'm signing off. See you back here later on, most likely. Peace out.